I caught my brother essaying my fiancée of 4 years, so I taught him a lesson he will never forget. Now, my family is saying it was a mistake and begging me to forgive him. Instead, I ensured he was locked up for the rest of his life. I 27 am and met my fiancée F 25 almost 7 years ago when we were both studying at college. We met through mutual friends and about a year later we started dating. When she was introduced to my family, everyone was delighted with her, even my mother, who tends to be somewhat reserved with foreigners. Note, my mother and father are migrants and since they arrived in the country where we live, they have always stayed close to the local community, so they are generally very reserved with anyone who is not from our community. This sounds racist, but it is not. At this point, I must mention my brother M29. Before the incident, he was my superhero. I always admired him because he was never intimidated by the local children. And because he was always very protective of me and our sister 22F, he always reminded us that we should never look down just because someone tried to annoy us and that we had as much right to live here as anyone. And when I introduced him to my girlfriend, they became good friends as time passed. And my girlfriend was quite close to my family, especially my siblings. Given her closeness to my family, it was usual for her to hang out with other of my relatives. She would go shopping with my sister and mother, play billiards with me and my cousins and be at every party my family organized. It was at one of these parties that me and my family ended up very drunk to the point that I ended up sleeping on the floor of my parents' living room. When the party ended, my girlfriend was behaving very weirdly, and when I asked her what was going on, she told me, "I think your brother tried to kiss me." The surprise that she gave me when hearing those words was so great that any effect of the alcohol disappeared. And I asked her to tell me everything that had happened. She told me that several of the guests went to the roof to drink up there and feel the wind or something like that. Little by little, they all left until in the end only she and my brother were left up there. They drank a while more, and while they were talking, she noticed that he was staring at her and out of nowhere, he bent down trying to kiss her, but she was faster and dodged it. The atmosphere became very uncomfortable after that, and she left there. When she finished telling me what happened, I took her to her house and later I talked to my brother and asked him to clarify the whole story. He basically told me the same story, but from his point of view, he apologized and said that he was so drunk, that he wasn't thinking and that he apologized for doing that. Just remembering that conversation makes my blood boil, because at that moment, I thought that it had only been a minor incident, something that could be solved with dialogue and establishing some limits. I could never think about what was going to happen next. After what happened at that party, the relationship between my brother and I was uncomfortable. We almost never spoke, and when we did, it was as polite as possible, almost as if we were strangers. The only person who knew what had happened, besides the three of us, was my younger sister. Because on one occasion when she and my girlfriend were talking, she asked if she knew why my brother and I had become distant from what she told her the story. My girlfriend and I decided not to comment on the rest of my family because we didn't want the relationship to fracture further. After a few months, my family organized a party where they invited a lot of people, friends, family, and people from our community. It was at that party that my girlfriend and my brother met again. At that point, I thought that enough time had passed since the kiss incident and that it could be the first step for things to return to normal. At some point during the party, I lost track of my girlfriend, and I started looking for her. I looked for her for a while without seeing her. So I assumed that maybe she was with my sister, but something passed through my head. So I decided to look upstairs while I was going up the stairs. I started to hear strange noises in one of the rooms. And when I opened the door, my brother was pushing my girlfriend against the bed, covering her mouth and trying to put her hand under her dress while she was trying to fight back. I didn't think twice about it. And as soon as I saw them, I pounced on my brother and started beating him. My girlfriend left the room as quickly as she could and went downstairs to ask for help. When my father and uncles came up, I was still beating the shit out of my brother. His face was full of blood as was my knuckles. My father was the one who had to separate us, but I kept insulting him and hitting him in the end. He was able to separate us. And then he took me out of the room while my uncles checked how bad my brother was. Outside the room my father asked me what the hell had happened to make me act like that. It took me a while to be able to formulate words, but finally I told him that I had just seen that my brother had tried to abuse my girlfriend. My dad, I know I was in shock for a while. He sat on the floor and put his hand on his forehead and was completely silent for about 10 minutes until my uncles called him because they were going to take my brother to the hospital. After they took my brother, I went to look for my girlfriend and found her talking to my sister about what just had happened. I said goodbye to my sister, and we left all the way to our house. She couldn't stop crying. She was confused, angry, and by the time we got home, she kept crying until she fell asleep. And that was her routine for a couple of days until little by little, she could talk again. In those days, my family kept me informed of my conditioned brother. I had broken his nose and dislocated his jaw. My mother was the one in denial, incredulous that her son was capable of something like that, but I didn't think much about it because in the end, each person reacts differently. And also, to a certain point, I understood why my mom was trying to explain my brother's actions.